Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the heart of a dense forest, there lived a sweet and innocent little girl known to all as Little Red Riding Hood. She earned her name because she always wore a bright red hood that her grandmother had lovingly made for her. One sunny morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother called her over and said, "Little Red, your dear grandmother is not feeling well. I've prepared a basket filled with freshly baked bread, a jar of honey, and some sweet, juicy berries. Take this basket to her to make her feel better." Little Red Riding Hood nodded and happily took the basket from her mother. She put on her red hood and started her journey through the woods to her grandmother's house. Along the way, she skipped, sang songs, and enjoyed the beauty of the forest. Unbeknownst to Little Red Riding Hood, a sly wolf had been watching her. The wolf had an idea and decided to take a shortcut to her grandmother's house. He reached the cottage before Little Red Riding Hood did and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" called her grandmother from inside. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf replied, trying to imitate her voice. Her grandmother, who was still feeling unwell, said, "Come in, dear." As the wolf entered the cottage, he quickly devoured the poor old woman and took her place in the bed, pulling the covers up to hide his appearance. When Little Red Riding Hood finally arrived at her grandmother's house, she noticed something was off. "Grandmother," she called, "why do you look so different today?" The wolf, still trying to sound like her grandmother, replied, "I'm feeling a bit under the weather, dear. Come closer so I can see you." Little Red Riding Hood, trusting her grandmother, approached the bed. However, she felt uneasy and asked, "Grandmother, what big eyes you have." The wolf replied, "All the better to see you with, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood continued, "And what big ears you have." The wolf responded, "All the better to hear you with, my dear." Finally, she exclaimed, "Grandmother, what big teeth you have." The wolf, unable to contain his deceit any longer, revealed himself and said, "All the better to eat you with." He lunged at Little Red Riding Hood. Just at that moment, a brave woodsman who had heard the commotion burst into the cottage and rescued Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf fled into the forest, never to be seen again. Little Red Riding Hood learned a valuable lesson that day about being cautious and not talking to strangers. She thanked the woodsman and returned home safely to her relieved mother. From that day forward, she was more careful when she journeyed through the woods, and her bright red hood served as a reminder of her adventure and the importance of staying safe. And so, the tale of Little Red Riding Hood became a cautionary story that children in the village would pass down for generations, ensuring that they always exercised caution when venturing through the deep, mysterious forest.